What's going on, y'all? It's me, Troi, and I'm back again, of course, with another video. As always, I want to say thank you to everybody who recently commented, liked, and subscribed. Thank you so much for being here, and I cannot believe I just did that. That is so not my child. That is not my swag to do stuff like that. But because I'm making this video, we're going to keep it moving forward. So I got my pen again, my Dollar General pen from the checkout line. I ain't going to do all that. I'm giving y'all teacher teas again today, even though I'm not a teacher girl. I don't try to teach nothing on here. But I'm here to talk about The Devil's Hatband. I love this. The Devil's Hatband by Robert Greer. I know this is a different copy. This is my actual copy here that I showed in my March Mystery Madness TBR. But my library had this hardback copy, and I had to have it. First, I love hardbacks. I mean, I don't mind trade paperbacks, but I just like this one more. And I'm just going to be up front and say I checked this one out and read it. I just love crinkling open hardback books with the Mylar sheet from the library. Anyway, I did read this book. It's the first book in Greer's CJ Floyd mystery series. You know, as I said, CJ Floyd is a black bondsman slash bounty hunter and the author as well. There you can see his picture. And I've got to say that this series or CJ Floyd is a pretty nice blend of Mosley's Easy Rawlins. Even though I haven't read Rawlins yet, I know just enough about him, girl. I know just enough about him. I know of him, but I haven't read him. Maybe one day we'll get to that soon. Y'all know how I feel about male protagonists anyway, child. I lean more towards the lady. But it's a blend of that with some Tony Hillerman. And so you're looking at some detective fiction, black gentleman, gruffy, kind of suave, smoking, gun-toting kind of action star with that setting and location and sort of atmosphere of a Tony Hillerman book, you know, like the Midwest and that sort of thing. So anyway, this is the first book in CJ Floyd series. I have the second book already in one of my carts. Can't wait to order it because I am going to stick with this series. I did enjoy this book. Now, I had some problems, which any book would, for me, speaking my truth. But nevertheless, what is this book about? So CJ Floyd is tapped on the shoulder by this black federal judge whose daughter has aligned herself with these eco-terrorists. She's a very smart woman, a very intelligent woman. Not only do the judge want his daughter back, as he has made a lot of excuses and concessions for her throughout her behavior growing up, as we get into in the book, but she also has stolen some documents related to this industry that he's a part of. What the ideal is that she's going to use those documents to support the eco-terrorists that she has aligned herself with. And these eco-terrorists, their agenda is to dismantle the cattle industry in this area. This takes place in Denver. But, you know, you just envision all of that. But that's their main objective. And what is so interesting that kind of caught me by surprise is the methodology in which they plan on dismantling the cattle industry, which was extremely interesting. And it made just a whole different layer to this book. So I don't want to give it away, but it had a lot to do with a virus. So it even took on not only just gumshoe, private investigating kind of work, but it took on bioterrorism, and it took on the cattle. It just took on just a plethora of different things. That's why I really was enthusiastic about picking up this book. But unfortunately, that woman, I'm going to go ahead and give it away, unfortunately, she's already found dead. She's the first murder victim. And that's when the story plows into CJ Floyd both being assigned to find out who murdered this judge's daughter, as well as to get the documents back, and for all intents and purposes to put a stop to these eco-terrorists, and if he can. To have him do all these things before Thanksgiving gives him a $10,000 reward. And CJ, a little bit reluctantly in the beginning, he goes about, you know, solving this crime. So that's the setup of The Devil's Hatband, and I love the book. I gave it 3 stars, but I did enjoy the book. So we'll get into the pros and cons, as you know, I'm just speaking here. So starting with the cons. There really weren't many per se, but I will say that there were moments of distraction as the first kind of 100 pages or so, you know, in between that, there were some moments, but it really took a while for the story to set off, for the story to get some momentum, for it to keep moving, because in the first 100 pages. So the author, you could tell he was very much in love with this character that he's created, as he spent a great amount of time both describing the character of CJ Floyd, you know, his mannerisms, his nuance, while he's this gentle but stuffed and tough and gruff bondsman. You know, the author addressed his history, which is necessary, and some of his little hobbies, like he collects license plates, CJ Floyd's love of cars, just a lot of different things that kind of got a little bit mired in the impetus of, you know, the first 100 pages to get the story going, you know, before everything kind of clicks and you as a reader is dedicated to finishing this story out. There were, like I said, some little clues in between that really kept you at least hooked. But those first 100 pages, you could really tell that the author was in love with this character that he's created. I would even go ahead and wager that it's probably some sort of reflection of himself in the character, but not a lot. Just you really get that vibe. So that did continue to happen throughout the story. But nevertheless, the main thing that I found myself trying to work with was keeping up with the cast. It was a pretty big cast of characters, and I think that some of the characters didn't get as much attention as I think that they would have needed. But it wasn't difficult to keep up with the cast, but there were just so many, and that came even harder as the author took moments in which he took the perspective of other characters as opposed to CJ's. So he jumped around a lot, even into some of the eco-terrorists and some of the side characters who were trying to stop CJ himself, and even some of the characters who were working alongside the judge. Although necessary at some points, it just kind of got a little bit confusing after a while, trying to keep up with all these different characters and the different moving parts that went along, tacked on top of the author's love of this character. Whenever he came back on stage, as we went through some more, he got to get the Cheroot cigar out. He got to get look at the license plate. So yeah, that part. But nevertheless, the strongest areas of this book is, one of the things that I love most about mysteries is when they surprise me, of course. And also when they take me places. There's nothing more gratifying in reading a mystery is when the author takes me to this place and lays out this information, a wealth of knowledge that I'm just absolutely not aware of. And that showcased itself in both the virus, speaking of the virus that the eco-terrorists were going to use to stop the cattle industry. The author really walked the reader through it. That was very interesting, as well as surprising, because I thought they were probably just going to set off some bombs or something on some ranches, but no, they did not. These folks, they said they were going to introduce a virus into the system. So that was interesting. And on top of that, it was interesting having the author walk me, the reader, who is just completely unaware of some of the pistons and gaskets that made up the engine of the cattle industry. You know, there were moments when I just had to just stop and kind of Google, let me look this up. So those parts was interesting, but it's even more gratifying when the main protagonist is outside of the office, when the main protagonist is outside of his or her setting. And, one of my favorite words is always resourcefulness. So it's gratifying to see that CJ was that resourceful kind of character who had the ability to go outside of his comfort zone, go outside of his setting to track down all these different characters, or to track down the agenda and the motive behind this whole story. So that was wonderful. I love seeing him go to different ranches and talk with different people. I love to see him go to labs. He went to the lab. He had a moment inside of a hunter's blind and stuff like that. So that was wonderful to get into. I just absolutely love when a mystery book takes me places I don't know, just that movement, you know what I mean? Just that general movement is wonderful. So that was great. So those were probably the biggest things I enjoyed about this book. It did get difficult, jumping from the different threads that eventually bled together to solidify, every different moving perspective and narrative that the author put us through towards who was behind you know, the whole overarching murder as well as the eco-terrorists, you know, all that stuff. It was kind of difficult to keep up with that at one point, and eventually all avenues led there, but for a while you wouldn't think so. So that was kind of jaunting a little bit, but I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed spending time with the character of CJ. I do look forward to reading the next book in the series. And so on that note, I'm out. I got things to do. The Devil's Hatband was a decent 3 stars for me, and I do look forward to the next book in the series. Peace.